And we continue at the top of Amud Beis. Tenisua, why not conclude it from the following? Notice we have a long answer marking. Just by way of structure, at the end of this long answer, the Gemara will have a dechia, a rejection. And that will lead to analysis number 2 of this source. But in the meantime, Abaye thinks that from this source that we're about to read, we can come to a conclusion. So he says, Tenisua, state the following Taneg source and derive your conclusion. What does it say? We saw this just before. The sheaf of grain that the owner picked up to bring to town, and he put it, in the meantime, before he got to town, he put it on top of other sheaves, and he forgot that upper one. He forgot it altogether, that and the lower. Hatachton shikha ve'elyon eino shikha. According to the first opinion, the tachton becomes shikha. The upper one does not. Rav Shimon Rabbi Shimon, shnehem einon shikha. Both of them, upper and lower, are not shikha. Hatachton mipnei shehu tamun, ve'elyon mipnei shehu tzaf. Savruha, an assumption is going to be made. Dahani tanoi, these tanoim that are arguing regarding the lower one, that these tanoim, Tanakama and Reb Shimon Yehuda, Kerebi Yehuda Svira Lahu, we're working with this as a given, that they both agree with Reb Yehuda regarding Shikha, the Omar, Basadeh, Prat L'Tamun, that they accept Reb Yehuda's approach, that when something is Tamun, when a sheaf of grain is Tamun, it will not become Shikha. That's an assumption we're making, that both Tanaim agree with that Tamun is excluded, because it's not Basadeh, it's covered over. My lav, Beha Komiflagi. So Abaye says, you know what then must be the point of disagreement in this top source? The more sovar min b'mino have tamun. Rabbi Shimon, that is the second opinion, holds that min b'mino creates tamun, and therefore, no, it's not shikha. Umor sovar, the Tanakama holds, the Tanakama who held that the tachton becomes shikha, lo have tamun. The fact that it's covered over by its own kind, the min b'mino, makes it such that it's not tamun. Oh, so what is Abaye saying? He's saying that as far as in the case of the two bodies, one on top of the other, is there a possibility of measuring from the bottom body? So he says that would be a machlokas tanoim. According to Rabbi Shimon, he wouldn't be able to measure from the bottom body because it's tamun. According to the Tanakama, it's not considered tamun, it becomes shikha. It's not considered tamun. He would be able to measure from the bottom body. He says, lo, that analysis to set up the issue concerning the tamun in a min b'mino situation as a machlokas tanoim, that's not the analysis. Rabbi Yehuda svira lahu, if the tanoim in the top source would agree with Rabbi Yehuda that Basadeh is to the exclusion of tamun, the kule alma, then everyone would have agreed min b'mino have a tamun. Once again, if you were to make the assumption, then there would be no machlokas tanoim, because you're dealing with min b'mino, two like substances. The bottom one would have become tamun. Vehacha, the brisa at the top, beplukta Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan komiflagi. The tanoim we see above actually parallel the machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. They argue regarding the tachton whether it's shikha or not. The Rabbanan kirabanan, the Rabbanan who held that the tachton is shikha, they hold, like the Rabbanan who argue with Rabbi Yehuda, that Basadeh comes to include tamun. For Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, who said that the bottom one is not shikha, Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that says Basodeh excludes Tamun. The Gemara asks, if the machlokis in the source above is simply a machlokis whether Tamun is included in Shikha or excluded, my iri al gabi chavero, why did the source feature that scenario of placing sheaves of grain upon other grains? Afilu ba'afar hu b'tzor nami. If you want to describe and say the whole machlokis is concerning the lower grains, the covered ones, why do they have to be covered by other grains, upper grains? Let them be covered by dirt or by pebbles. In hachi nami, you're right. It wasn't absolutely necessary to teach, if being that we are focusing on creating a case of Tamun and then have a machlokis tanaim on the issue of Tamun, it could have been covered, the lower ones could have been covered by other materials as well. And there would have been a machlokis there too. So then what was the significance of teaching that the lower ones are covered by other sheaves of grain? Ulo diach koichei de Rabbi Yehuda, to show us how far Rabbi Yehuda goes. Diamar filu min b'mino have tamun. Even though they're like substances, it still creates tamun. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, tamun is excluded, even though it's being covered by a like substance. Before we continue in the Gemara, we glance at the side where we have a nosay, a topic heading, Ofan shenirtzach. We're going to touch on how did the murder take place, umikum hagufa kishimatsu, and the location of the body when it was found. Tana Rabbanan chalal. The pasuk says ki motze chalal ba'adama. Chalal v'lo chanuk. Chalal indicates being cut or decapitated by a sword, and not strangled. In other words, we're talking about someone murdered by the sword, not strangulation. Chalal v'lo mefaper. He has to be completely dead and not someone that's still twitching around. Bo adama. What does that tell me? V'lo tamun bagal. Not covered by stones. The body, that is. No fail. Pasuk uses the term no fail, and you can see the pasuk on the side that we are darshaning. What does no fail tell me? V'lo talui be'ilan, and not a body that you find suspended from a tree, a murder victim suspended from a tree, that will not create egla rufa. Basodeh v'lo tsof al panei hamayim. Basodeh tells me that it has to be in the field and not a body you find floating on water. Rebbe Ozer Omer bekulan im hoya chalal orphan. In all of these cases, if the victim was murdered through a sword, even if it's Toman Bagal, even if it's Toli Ba'ilan, it's Tzaf Amayim, orphan. What does orphan mean? We would have the Egla Arufa ceremony. Tanya, Omer Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, Omru Lo the Rebbe Ozer. Rebbe Ozer, as I'm sure everyone got the sense, he's very inclusionary of many scenarios will lead to Egla Rufa. So Rabbi Yossi says that the Rabbanon said to Rabbi Ozer, I ata moida shim hoya chanuk umutal ba'ashba she'ein orphan. Wouldn't you agree that if you find a murder victim through strangulation and the body is cast on a garbage heap, that there would be no Egla Arufa? Wouldn't you agree with that? Alma chalal v'lo chanuk. So by agreeing with that, you're acknowledging that the word chalal is meaningful, meaning chalal is someone killed through a sword and not strangulated. Well, hachanami, by the same token, you should pay, let's say, serious attention, give weight to the other words, bo adama v'lo tamud bagal, in the field or in the dirt on the ground and not covered with stones. No fail v'lo toli b'ilan. Basadeh v'lo tzaf al gabi mayim. You should exclude all of those cases as well, even if they were killed by the sword. For Rebbe Ozer, why is it that Rebbe Ozer says that once the murder victim is killed by the sword, then all the other factors fall away. They're of no concern, and it will be grounds for egla arufa. Because cholol yisera ksiv, because the word cholol appears several times. It's a repeated word in that parsha, and the fact that it's emphasized tells me that once it's a murder victim through the sword, then we have egla rufa, regardless of the other circumstances. However, cholol also tells us that if it's not a murder victim through the sword, but it's strangled, then there would be no egla arufa. Nimsa somuch l'sfar le'ir sheruba oivdei kechavim. If the body was found near the border, the national border, or near a city whose majority are idol worshippers, then there would be no egla arufa. Dichtiv, the pasuk said, ki yimotsei. If you chance upon, and the word yimotsei is here prat to the exclusion of lemotsui, to a situation that you would expect. Mimotsei indicates something unusual, chancing upon the unusual. Motsui is a reference to something that's common. Murders take place, relatively speaking, often on the border. Murders are likely to take place when you're in the vicinity of a city of idol worshippers. So, therefore, in those cases, there will be no, where the body is found there will be no egla arufa. O le'ir she'ein ba bezdin. Tibo'ina, if the body is found near the city, a city that doesn't have a court in it, so that city, even though it's closest, there won't be any egla arufa. Tibo'ina zikne ha'ir veleka. You need to have a fulfillment of elders of the city. And veleka means, and it's lacking. The Mishnah had said, nimtza, we said nimtza somoch l'sfar, etc., and also li'ir she'ein ba bezdin lo hoyu moidedin. So the Mishnah said that if you found the body near a city that doesn't have a court in it, so there would be no measuring. And then it went on to say, ein moidedim elo li'ir sheyesh ba bezdin. Well, doesn't that seem to be redundant? Pshita. The closing comment seems to be obvious. Kevan de Tana, since you taught le'ir she'ein ba bezdin, that you wouldn't measure to a city where there is no court, there are no sages, no elders there. Hano yodana, I would then know the ein moidedim elo le'ir sheyesh ba bezdin. Why then does the Mishnah have to add that we don't do medida unless it's to a city that has a court in it? The Gemara answers why the seeming redundancy. Ha kamash malon kedesanya. Whereas I need we'll say the doubling of this halacha for the following. Minayin shenimtza somuch li'ir she'ein bo bezdin. From where do you know that if you found a body, the nearest city to the body was a city that had no court in it? Shemanifen oisa umodedin le'ir sheyesh ba bezdin. That you would continue measuring till you get to a city that has a court in it. Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, "V'lokhu ziknei ha'ir hahi mikol makom." Rashi says, Talmud Lomar v'lokhu ziknei ha'ir mikol makom dahai ha'ir kro yaseruhu. The word ha'ir is extra. The motzli michtav v'hoya ha'ir akrove el ha'chalav v'lokhu zikeineha eglas bokar. Could have used a pronoun, its elders, but it added the word the city. So far, I think that we still need some clarification. What have we said over here? The clarification will be appreciated by learning the Rashi. In other words, by learning Rashi, we'll achieve clarity. Rashi, just above the Rashi we just read, if the body was found closest to a city that had no court in it, You don't figure that in the measuring. You continue measuring till you get to a city that has a court in it. Ezo hi'ir sheyesh bo basin krovalo. Whichever city that has a court in it that's closest to it, that will be the city for the egla arufa. V'lo hader tanya. If I didn't have the doubling expression in the Mishnah, have amina ein moidedin klal. I would have thought the following. I would have thought if they started measuring and the closest city they got to was a city that had no court in it, says, that would be a sign, so to speak, that we stop the whole measuring and there's not going to be any egla arufa. So the double expression in the Mishnah, that what we termed before as redundancy, tells me, no, if you're measuring and the closest city happens to be one without a court, keep measuring till you get to a city that has a court in it, and then establish and then conclude, is this city that you just reached with a court in it the closest city to the corpse? Or maybe in the other direction, there's a closer city that happens to have a court in it. But the main point is that without the doubling, I would have thought that if in your measuring the first city you come to that's closest to the corpse has no court in it, the whole process stops. Kol mashma, we come to tell you, not so. The Mishnah. Before we read the Mishnah, we have on the side a topic heading, Nimtza hachalal mechuvon bein shtei aros. Imagine finding a murder victim exactly between two cities. And another situation, haguf v'harosh b'shnei makomos, case where the body has been separated from the head and they're in two separate locations. And a third point is, me'ayin hoyu modedin, from where on the body did they start the counting in order to determine which city was closer? Was it maybe from the mouth, from the navel, from the heart? Let's see. Let's turn to the Mishnah. Nimsa mechuvan bein shtei ayoros. If a body, a murder victim, is found between two cities, exactly between two cities, shtein mevios shtei agalos. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rabbi Eliezer, both cities bring each one a calf of its own. V'ein Yerushalayim mevio egla rufa. If Jerusalem happens to be the closest city, it won't be included as a possibility of bringing the egla arufa. Nimsa roisha b'mokom echad v'gufa b'mokom acher molichen haroish eitzel haguf. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. If you find the two separated, so Rabbi Eliezer says you bring the head to where the body is. Rabbi Kiva Omer haguf eitzel harosh. You bring the body to where the head is. Me'ayin hoyu moidedin. Rabbi Ozer Omer mitiburo. There are three opinions. So the first is Rabbi Ozer says that the measuring would be from the tiburo, the navel. Rabbi Akiva Omer mechotmo, from his nostrils, from where he breathes. Rabbi Ozer ben Yaakov Omer mimokom shenas echolol mitzavaro, from the part of the body that a person would become a cholol, and that is from the neck. Why is there, when we speak about cholol being a murder victim, why is that associated with the neck? That itself will be explained in the Gemara. The Gemara. My taima de Rebbe Eliezer. What is the basis for Rebbe Eliezer that if you find a body exactly between two cities, they both bring calves? Kosovar efsher litzamtzem. Rebbe Eliezer is of the opinion that when it comes to measuring, it's possible to be exact. And the pasuk that says Ho'ir HaKrova is not to be taken literally in the singular. Hu Krova ve'afilu Krovos. When it says in the city nearest, it can mean the cities nearest as well. V'ein Yerushalayim mevia egla arufa. Maybe just a word before we go on with regard to Rebbe Eliezer, who said that efshel litzamtzem. If it were efshel litzamtzem, and yet it means you can't be exact. Let's just say that. And yet our measuring indicates that that they're both the same distance. The halacha would have been they bring one calf and they make a stipulation. If we're the closer one, so then this is brought on our behalf. And if you're the closer one, so then that which we're bringing is brought on your behalf. But Rabbi Ozer doesn't say that. He doesn't say. He says, Efshel Tzamtzem. When you measure, you can reach precision, exactitude, and as a result of that, plus understanding that the word krova in the Chumash is not to the exclusion of krovos, he concludes, bring 2 calves. The Ein Yerushalayim Mevia Egla Rufa, the Yom Kra, the Pasuk had said, L'rishta. V'kosovar Yerushalayim lo nischalk l'shvatim. The word L'rishta means as an inheritance. So the Pasuk had said, in Dvorim Perek Chaf Aleph Pasuk Aleph, it said, Ki motzei cholo ba'adom asher Hashem Elokecha nosein l'chol l'rishta. If you find a murder victim on the ground that the Almighty gave to you as an inheritance, so then the Egla Rufa procedure continues. Inheritance means something that was owned by father, then inherited by son. When he dies, inherited by the next generation. It's a personal type ownership. The word L'rishta indicates found in a place that's subject to personal ownership. However, Yerushalayim, the Kosav Yerushalayim, lo nischalka l'shvatim. Jerusalem was not part of the division of the land of Israel when the landmass of Israel was distributed amongst the Shvatim. Yerushalayim was a separate entity, in effect owned by no one, or if you may prefer, owned by everyone. But we can certainly say no one could claim any ownership to any part of Yerushalayim. Nimtza Roshoi b'mokom b'chulei. The Mishnah described head found in one location, body found in another. B'mai kol miflagi. The machotis that we saw in the Mishnah between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, what's the issue that they're arguing about? If it's a machotis concerning from where do you do the measuring, well, from the fact that the last part of the Mishnah deals with the question of from where is the measuring to take place. The earlier part of the Mishnah dealt with the body in one place and the head in the other place was unrelated to the issue of measurement. Rabbi Yitzchak explains the issue of the head and body separated relates to something else altogether. The Meis Mitzvah Kana Mekayma Kamiflagi. Meis mitzvah is a body that one finds unburied and unaccounted for. Meaning, no one. When I say unaccounted for, meaning we don't know. There's no one around who will bury it. There's no relatives around that take charge of the burial. You're walking by, you find the body. No one else is around to bury it. You have to bury it. That's called meis mitzvah. And a unique aspect of meis mitzvah is that he is buried where he is found. He is kona makomo. He acquires the ground, so to speak, upon which he is located. This is one of the takonos that were made, that are featured in Maseches Bava Kama. It's one of the takonos, the tanoim that Yoshua made when the 10 takonos, 10 tanoim that Yoshua instituted when the Jews entered the land of Israel. So now that we've given a bit of background to this idea of meis mitzvah kana makomo v'hochi komar, the Mishnah is to be understood as follows: lekovro kana makomo, a body that's found, as far as where it's to be buried where it's found. V'heichod nimtzo roisha b'mokom echad v'gufa b'mokom acher. In a case where the head is in one location and the body is in another location, Molichan Arosh Eitzel Haguf, Divrei Rebbe Lezer. You bring the head to where the body is. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Haguf Eitzel Harosh, the other way around. The body is brought to where the head is. B'mai Komifli. What's the underlying point of disagreement? What's the explanation of their disagreement? Mor Sovar Gufe Beduchte Nofio. The opinion of Rebbe Lezer is such that the body fell where you found it. That's where the person died. Reisha de nodi v'nafel. The head, nodi is it means movement. In other words, the head rolled away. So if you have a person that was decapitated, the body drops where it is, and that's where you found it. The head rolled away, bring the head to the body. Umar Savar, Rabbi Kiva, he says, Reisha hechad nafel nafel. The head where it fell, it fell. That's where the burial is to take place. Gufa hu deroid vazil. The body, and you can see this in the case of slaughtering, the body continues to move. So the person was decapitated, but there was still nerve movement, and the body, right, means it ran away. It ran further away, a few paces away, but that's not where the death took place. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva holds, you bring the body to where the head is. From what part of the body do you start the measure when measuring to the closest city? In the Mishnah we saw three opinions. What's the underlying point of machlokas? More Sovar Rabbi Kiva holds Iker Chiyusa Be'apei. The main aspect or main source of life is, Apei means his face. Rabbi Kiva made reference to measuring from the nostrils. That's where a person breathes. The breath of life comes through one's nostrils. That's Apei, his face. Most Sovar Rabbi Ozer holds Iker Chiyusa Be'tiburei. The main source of life is from that area of the body that we call the navel. Based on Rashi, I think you can say that the word halal is associated with the absence of life. Life has been removed. So what was the mainstay of the life when the person was alive? And when that is removed, so that's when he becomes called a halal. So Rabbi Kiva is saying that the mainstay of life is through one's breath. So measurement takes place starting from the nose. And according to Rabbi Ozer, the mainstay of life is from the person's midsection. So that's where the measuring takes place, because it's from that point that he becomes a halal. Leimo ki hani tanoi. Can we say that the machlokas Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Ozer parallels the following machlokas tanoim? Mehechon havlad notzar. From where is an embryo formed? What's the first part in embryonic development? What's the first part to become formed? So, meirosho. The first opinion says from its head. V'cheinu omer. The pasuk says mimei imi ato goizi. V'omer gozi nizreich v'hashlichi. The word nizreich has to do with like the nozir and hair growth. It's a reference to the head. The word gozi appears with nizreich, and the word gozi also appears with the birth of a child. So from even before that, from within the mother's womb, you see the word gozi. So gozi has to do with head, child formed from head. Abba Shol Omer, another opinion, mi tiburo. The child's formation is from the area of the navel. U'mishalech shoroshoi eilech ve'elech. And as the embryo develops, it casts its roots are cast in all directions. So we have here a machlokes tanoim concerning mehechon avlad notzar. The Tanakama says head. That would seem to parallel the idea of Rabbi Kiva, where the ikar of life is from the face, from the head, and Rabbi Shol, where the child develops from the tibur, so the ikar of life is from the tibur. The Gemara says no. Afilu tema Abba Shol, which means we can actually say that Abba Shol will agree with Rabbi Akiva. Ad kan lo kom Rabbi Shol al inyan yitzira. Up till now, Rabbi Abba Shol states his opinion only with regard to fetal formation. Dechi mitzar vlad, when the vlad is formed, be mitzar say mitzar. Its development is from its midpoint, its middle part of its body, and it branches out from there. Avalinian chiyusa, but as far as where the essence of life is, where the mainstay, the main factor in life preservation, the kulei alma, that means not just Rabbi Akiva, but Abba Shol as well. The kulei alma be'apei hu. It's from the breath, from the face. Dechtiv kol asher nishmas ruach chayim bi'apov. Here you see chayim, ruach chayim, the life breath is ba'apov, in one's face. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Mimokom Shenase Cholol Mitzavoro. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that the parsha of Egla Arufa, the measurement, that is, for Egla Arufa, is from the neck. My time of the Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Kidduchtiv, the pasuk says, Loseis oisoch el tzavorei chalalei rishaim. Now, without translating the pasuk literally, what you do see here is the word halal is juxtaposed with tzavar, so that the tzavor is the point from which the measuring shall take place. Because at tzavor you create halal, and halal is the subject of Egla Arufa. Ki motzei halal basadeh. The Mishnah. This Mishnah we introduce on the side refers to tafkidam shelet, the role of. Now, the Mishnah is not going to speak about ziknei Yerushalayim. They were dealt with till now. They dealt with the measuring. The Mishnah will make an allusion to them, but also furthermore, ziknei Oisair, the elders of that city which is found closest to the victim, and HaKohanim, the role of the Kohanim. The Mishnah. Niftaru Ziknei Yerushalayim V'Hochlahem. Once the Ziknei Yerushalayim, the members of the high court who were involved with measuring, Niftaru means they finished and walked away. They went home. Ziknei Oisair, at that point then, the elders of the closest city, Mevin Eglaz Bokar, Asher Lo Mashcha Ba'oil. They bring a calf that did not draw a yoke. In other words, a yoke, it's a type of a harness that's placed on an animal that's through that it's attached to a plow. This calf never had a yoke upon it while it walked with it. In other words, the egel, the calf will be disqualified if it walked with a yoke on it. V'ein hamum poisel ba. In contrast to other cases, for example, a red heifer, the paraduma, which is disqualified by a blemish, the egel is not disqualified by a blemish. Sacrifices are disqualified by a blemish, but this is not a sacrifice. Even though it has an atonement element to it, has nothing to do with animal, with something brought to the Beis HaMikdash. Umoridin oisa lenachal eson. And the calf is then brought down to a Nachal Eson, a harsh valley. Eson kemashmo kosher. The word Eson means something that's tough, maybe we'll say it in the context here is hard ground. Afapi she'eno Eson kosher. However, as far as the halacha is concerned, that's not a binding factor, so that if you took the Egla Arufa to a location that the ground was not Eson, wasn't hard, it's still okay. For orphan oisa bekupitz me'achorea, and it's decapitated by using a kupitz. Kupitz is Rashi says, kemin sakin golo, type of large knife. It's probably a chopping knife, and it's decapitated from behind its head, meaning from the back of its neck. Umakoma osur milizra milavoid. Where it was decapitated, it's then forbidden to plant or to cultivate, to till the land. However, that plot of ground could be the site on which you would, let's say, comb flax in the linen making process, or where you would chisel stones. These are activities, but they're not earth-related activities. It just happens to be a location where you might be doing those things. Ziknei oisoir rochatzin es yedeim b'mayim b'mokom arifa shel egla. The elders of that city wash their hands in water where the decapitation of the calf took place. V'oimrim, and they say, Yodenu lo shavchu es hadam hazeh ve'einenu lo ra'u. The translation of the pasuk is, our hands did not spill this blood on us. We, the elders, we did not do the murder, and our eyes did not see. Now, this is a little odd. Would it have occurred to us that these elders are murderers, that they have to come and announce that they didn't do the murder? What really is the intention is not actual murder, but it's behavior that could lead to a murder. The elders have to say, they have to, let's say, confess, or they have to say, they have to announce that this guy, this murder victim, didn't come to us, upashanuhu, and we let him go. It's explained later, let him go means let him go on his trip without any food. Because if that would happen, that someone would come into your midst, he's a traveler, and you let him go without giving him, let's say, food for the way, he's going to go out of your town hungry. What's the next thing that's going to happen? He'll see some people, some other travelers who have food. He might go and attempt to rob them, and they, in self-defense, will kill this guy. So the elders are saying, no, we didn't. This guy didn't come to us and letting him go without food. V'lo ro'inuhu v'nachnuhu, and they also say we didn't see him and us leave him be without. And we'll explain later what that means. It means leave him be without anyone to accompany him, to let him go alone on the road, leaving him to be a sitting duck for all kinds of prowlers. We continue at the top of Daf Mem Vov. V'hakohenim omrim kaper l'amcho Yisrael asher podiso Hashem v'al titein dam noki b'kerev amcho Yisrael. It's a plea to the Almighty that you should forgive your nation of Israel that you redeemed, and don't allow innocent blood to go, say, unavenged in amongst Israel. Lo hoyu tzrifin lomar. They didn't say what you see in the continuation of the pasuk. It says v'nikaper lohem hadam. That's not something that the kohanim had to say. So what is that phrase? Where is that phrase coming from? Ela ruach hakodesh mevasrosan. A divine spirit informs them. Emosai shetasu kocha. When you do this ceremony of eglo arufa, hadam miskaper lohem. The blood, the murder, is atoned for. Of course, if the actual murderer is discovered, is found, then this does not stand in place of a court prosecution of the actual murderer. But in the meantime, a murder did take place, and that's a national catastrophe, and therefore there has to be some form of forgiveness and atonement that is in fact accomplished if they do this whole ceremony. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.
This was a presentation of the Daf Map. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to be informed of our other videos. For resources and more information, please visit our website at www.thedafmap.com.